So what the heck is Battleclaw? Battleclaw is a series jointly created by the companies Mattel and Ouyang, which features little magical creatures called jinlins that teams of players capture using the eponymous Battleclaws. Special gauntlets that fire out those things you use to grab toys in those crane game machines at Walmart. These jinlins can then be temporarily fused into monsters that do battle. Battleclaw first caught my attention when an article announced that Mattel was going to be the master toy licensee, and the idea of Mattel making products for a Chinese brand rather than vice versa was fascinating. It also seems to be the first experiment in seeing how well a series could maintain itself entirely on YouTube. Yes, the Battleclaw series is currently archived on its own YouTube channel rather than on television or a streaming service, sort of like what I mentioned in my Mech Card review. You could watch every episode for free right now if you wanted to. So, how is the show anyway? Yeah, I've mentioned this show a few times in other videos as an example of ineptitude, but I still think it's fun to watch. It doesn't kick Swirl Fighters from the title of The Room of Anime, but it does come close. The way I can best describe it is if, like, somebody watched a cartoon show once a long time ago and tried to recreate it from memory, and that show was probably Jackie Chan Adventures, with maybe a little bit of Pokemon and Winx Club thrown in, with some 5-minute study sessions on YouTube before they got to work. Now, the Pokemon comparison starts with the theme song, where they try to copy the Pokemon theme, but it just talks about how to do stuff and is missing the schmaltzy sentimentality of the original.
Shillings of metal, wood and fire, earth and water too. I choose the right ones at the right time, I know what to do.
It would be like if the Pokemon theme was all about throwing balls at Pokemon and then spent half the song rattling off all the different types. Okay, bad example. In contrast, the Chinese theme seems like a more earnest attempt to make a proper introduction. The animation is slower and easier to follow for starters. Now let's start with the pilot episode, which is sort of a microcosm of everything the show has to offer. We start with our hero Tai-yi, that's spelled T-Y-E-E, a Battleclaw-loving boy who works at his uncle Wo-Fat's Battleclaw arena. And here's where the Jackie Chan reference kinda comes in, because in doing the work he's all bad day, bad day, bad day! After doing his chores, his uncle has one more thing for him to do and passes him what is basically an excuse to go out and meet the rest of the main cast. On the way, Tai-yi, I'm sorry, his name is just fun to say, encounters a weird purple jinlin before being grabbed by a girl wielding a Battleclaw who then drags him off to her monastery. It's here that Tai-yi meets the rest of Team Go-Go, our go-to heroes in this series. The girl named Shan-shan, a nerd named Duppy, and a guy who literally looks like Jackie Chan from Jackie Chan Adventures named Hao-lan. Okay, if it seems like I'm sort of glossing over things here, it's because the episode itself is moving at an insane rate of speed. No kidding, it's taking me as long to explain the events as it has been for them to occur. This episode moves so fast that by the time we're 6 minutes into the episode, including theme song, not only have we met every single major character, but Tai-yi has also pulled out whatever the Battleclaw equivalent of the Sword and the Stone is. After Wo-Fat reneges on his promise to let him join his own Battleclaw team, Tai-yi... Okay, sincerest apologies to anybody watching this who actually is named Tai-yi. Also, my sincerest apologies to anybody watching this named Simba, because you had it way worse growing up than anybody named Tai-yi. Returns to the monastery to fight for Team Go-Go. It's here that the Master pulls Tai-yi aside and explains the origins of Battleclaw. Before the universe existed, 5 titans of the elements, don't ask me how something existed before anything existed, it makes my brain hurt, would duel each other in good-spirited battles using giant elemental monsters that affected the shape of the world. The 5 elements lived peacefully until the Fire Nation attacked. What? The obviously evil-looking guy is evil? What a twist! Mo Yan, the Titan of Fire, tried to take all of the elemental powers for himself. However, he was thwarted by the Earth Titan Pan Yao, which not only sealed away the Titans, but shattered the elemental monsters into millions of pieces, which became the Jinlins. So yeah, TLDR, the Jinlins are basically God Dandruff, and Chinese Jafar over here is evil! In the second half of our episode, see, I told you it was crowded, sees Tai-yi joining Team Go-Go in a grudge match against his uncle's team, Team Wo-Fat, which of course he manages to win with a little teamwork and the power of his guts. And so our episode ends with Tai-yi leaving his uncle's place and moving in with Team Go-Go, along with the mysterious purple Jinlin, who they name... Joju. Not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. I am not. Yeah, the Battleclaw pilot is a mess. They crammed in so much stuff that nothing is really given a chance to sink in, and we don't really get the chance to form a connection to our main characters. There are many places where the pilot could have been shored up. The history of the universe could have been moved to an episode where it was more relevant, and the buildup of Taiyi's special Battleclaw could have been drawn out a bit more so we can form the proper attachment. If the pilot has any benefit, though, it's the fact that it severely lowers your expectations and actually makes the whole thing a lot more enjoyable. It's actually a bit of a mixed bag, where the writer's clear lack of the understanding of the various conventions of the genre can create surprising results. First, the Battleclaw matches themselves. You don't actually start with a bunch of Jinlins that you fuse monsters out of. Instead, the match begins with a bunch of Jinlins getting released into the wild, which the players have to track down and capture, and it's random every time. It's like if every match was a random booster draft, which is actually kind of a neat idea. However, that does come at a cost. It means that there aren't really any iconic Jinlins for people to grow attached to, with one exception, but he is horribly misused and I'll get into him later. The random nature of the battles also makes it very difficult to follow the rules of the universe. There are some interesting complexities, such as the use of the Wuxing, a piece of Taoist philosophy involved in the interactions of the 5 elements, and the fact that you can get a completely different monster depending on which Jinlin you use first. On the subject of the monsters, though, they're also a bit of a mixed bag. In some cases, they look really cool, but in others, it's like a bad run on the Pokemon Fusion machine. They had to kinda churn these out, and it really shows on some of them. And then there's the weird flying koala in the room, Joju. Joju seems to lack his own element, but has the ability to merge into either an incredibly underpowered or an incredibly overpowered monster depending on where he's placed on the fusion grid. And while Team Go-Go knows how overpowered he is, they never use him. Instead, Joju is given the role of the adorable team pet, doing the cute things in an effort to make the kiddies at home giggle. It's actually so bad that there's an episode where Joju goes around begging to be used in battle and everybody ignores him. I don't know about you, but if I discovered that my pet was some kind of overpowered game winner, I'd try to figure out how it works as soon as possible. We also get to meet some other players, such as a team who specializes in metal Jinlins, a group of thieves, and the champion Lanji, whose specialty is posing for calendars, apparently.
I can't believe that's
There is the potential for some really good and interesting stuff here, but it has some problems with its cohesion. I'll come back to that once I explain how the story has gone, so yeah, right now, just spoiler alert. In the second episode, Wo-Fat encounters the ghost of Mo Yan, who demands to be given the power of Jinlins to return to his former glory, which Wo-Fat acquiesces to. Wo-Fat even goes so far as to build him a sort of super temple faster than they say Rome was built. This sets up our overarching conflict for the rest of the series, where Taiyi and Team Go-Go must stop Wo-Fat from resurrecting Mo Yan. However, it's not taken very seriously. I mean, this guy is supposed to be a threat to the universe itself, but he's treated like a classic hammy villain yelling at his bumbling minions.
Do you know what I would find truly amusing? If I were to completely incinerate you! Now then I would finally have something to laugh about!
Brainless idiots, you couldn't even beat a motley group of gnomes!
And Team Go-Go is willing to let that whole Mo Yan thing sit on the back burner to have fun forest antics. It's actually kind of hilarious.
How many Jinlins did you bring me? 0? But I'll bring twice that amount next time! 2 times 0 is 0! It is? Oh.
But through all of this ineptitude, there was one moment of sheer genius that I can only assume came out by accident. In episode 4, Hao-Lan, who has gotten fed up with Taiyi's rising celebrity, quits Team Go-Go and joins the bad guys of Team Wo-Fat. Now, I'm sure a lot of you can guess where this is going. Hao-Lan's gonna find he has no chemistry with the bad guys, and he's gonna apologize and make up, and everybody's gonna go back to normal, right? Well... Now, the first part does happen, but then the episode genuinely surprised me. Hao-Lan actually stayed with the bad guys and becomes a recurring antagonist because his pride prevented him from admitting he had made a mistake. It's something so profound that I don't think the writers have caught on to what they accomplished because it's never brought up again. Sure, they bring up the jealousy that motivated his defection from Team Go-Go, but not this part of him that made him refuse to admit its mistake. And I kinda wish it was, because it's such a cool idea. Instead, they just have him kinda go full jerkwad.
Taiyi, this is your stop.
And that's really Battleclaw's biggest problem, its lack of cohesion. Nobody really seems to have much of a deep motivation or personal stakes, outside of hao-lan maybe, and that's largely because things are tied together so poorly. I mean, maybe if the case was that Wo-Fat had been working for Mo-Yan all along, which is why he owns his own Battleclaw arena and is such a huge jerk, maybe that would have made a bit more sense story-wise. However, I'd be lying if I said Battleclaw wasn't entertaining. It is the fun kind of bad, as opposed to the offensive kind of bad we saw with Redekai, and carries a much lighter load as far as the genre is concerned. It's a fun experience, and if it does well enough to merit a second season, maybe they'll fix some of the writing problems. The acting is corny, the animation's okay, it kind of feels like one of those shows out of the 80s, only in the good way. As for the toy line made by Mattel, it's remarkably solid. It's economical, fun, and even kinda nuanced, using that combination of skill and strategy that made things like Bakugan and Ninjago fun, only with its own twist. There are 3 parts of the current Battleclaw toy line: the cards, the Jinlins, and the Battleclaws themselves. The Battleclaws come in one of 5 types, one for each member of Team Go-Go, and a 5th one for Mo-Yan. They, naturally, all resemble Crane Game claws and work largely the same way, with a spring-loaded grabber and pull string. The goal of the Battleclaw is to slide it out into the pile of Jinlins both players have put together in an effort to grab them and bring them back. Just like with a Crane Game though, you have to bring it back all the way, you can't just grab it and pull it a little bit. And this takes a bit of skill. Like with a Crane Game, there's some subtlety to it, as the spring is just weak enough that you might end up with fewer Jinlins than you thought. My preferred method is to eyeball how far away your target is and then anchor the drawstring in such a way that the claw will slam shut at the perfect place. I have caught tons of Jinlins using this method. The claws all have different shapes and all seem to have different strategies for use, so I guess it's up to you to figure out which claw works best. Personally, for me, I actually find Taiyi's Thunder Battleclaw to be the most effective. They also have some little hard points on them, but I'm unsure what these might be for. Carrying cases? Future accessories? Who knows? The Jinlins are the core of the series. These little critters come unpainted in a variety of shapes and colors molded out of a sort of soft plastic. They kinda resemble the sorts of pawns you might see in some fancier board games. The Jinlins come in 5 colors, one for each element of the Wu Jing, and the first wave has them in 7 shapes: spider, ape, scorpion, snake, dragon, rhino, and squid. We've seen others like cats, eagles, and turtles, both in the show and in the instructions, which I imagine are being saved for Wave 2. All of them are visually striking and instantly recognizable for the animal they're supposed to be, except maybe the dragon, but it helps that the dragon looks like none of the other Jinlins. In addition to the solid color Jinlins, they also come in dual tone and clear types. The molding is also pretty nice, at least for something of this price tag, and the paint-free, brightly colored figures give a sort of classic feel that few current collectible lines have. Even on their own, they're sort of fun to army build with and practice grabbing with the claw arm, and that's before we get the card game involved. Yeah, there's a card game too. There's actually 3 different types of cards, but the basic rules only use monster cards, so we'll start with those. These monster cards are what we are catching Jinlins for. Each monster card has 2 elemental symbols, 1 Jinlin symbol, an attack power, and a defense power. To activate a monster card, you must place 1 Jinlin of each of its 2 elements onto the card. You don't technically need to match the Jinlin types being used, just the color. However, if you do play a matching Jinlin of either element as indicated by the Jinlin icon on the left, you activate that monster's special ability, which can be everything from a one-time effect to a continuous power-up. Like with the show, the monsters are also a bit of a mixed bag. There are monster cards that are flat out worse than others, where their effect of their bonus makes them merely on par with other monster cards. Perhaps the best example of card balance with those sorts of buffing effects is King Coil, whose effect can push it above par if you satisfy its requirement. They've got a great example of balance here, and I hope they do more with it. To play a basic game, each player needs a Battleclaw, 3 Jinlins who are all different colors and shapes, a boundary card, and 3 monster cards. Once the boundary cards are placed to represent the edges of the field, a roughly 2-foot square, or 60 centimeters if you live elsewhere, players pile all of their Jinlins into a center pile and then perform a break by ramming their closed Battleclaws into the pile at the same time. After that, it's game on. Players each take turns taking a shot at the Jinlins in the field, shooting from at least 1 card length away from any Jinlin. Any Jinlins caught by the claw must be fully dragged out of bounds to be considered caught. Any who slip out remain in play. The player may then use their captured Jinlins in one of 2 ways, either by playing them onto matching elemental slots on their monster cards, or by ditching them back into the field in order to place a token giving +10 to attack on one of their monsters. These take place one at a time. There's not like a set your Jinlin step before these sorts of things happen. When a monster card has 2 Jinlins on it, one of each element, it immediately steps forward to attack. Choose one of your opponent's monsters as a target. Your monster must have an attack power equal to or higher than that other monster's defense power in order to defeat it. This is where the bonuses come in. Your monster gets plus 10 attack for each power-up token on it. There is also a Wuxing bonus underneath the attack stat. If one of your target's element matches the element on the Wuxing bonus, then your monster gains this bonus as well. When a monster is defeated, it is stripped, meaning all of its tokens are removed and any Jinlins on it are thrown back into play, and then gets turned over to show that it was defeated. Regardless of whether the attack went through or not, the attacking Jinlin gets tapped or turned on its side to show that it's tired and cannot attack again until it is untapped, and is likewise stripped. Once all 3 of your opponent's monsters are turned face down, you win. Not too hard, and you actually get a feel for some of the depth the game carries. For example, you get more actions if you have a higher skill at capturing Jinlins, and you can have some important decisions to make on how you use them. Do you ditch a Jinlin to get that one last plus 10 token, or do you plant it on another monster to prevent your opponent from getting it? There is one little flaw in the basic rules, though. With only 6 Jinlins in play and 6 monster cards between all players, it's possible for there to be 1 Jinlin on each monster without any more to grab and play. So perhaps the number of Jinlins in the basic game should be brought up to 4, or a stalemate requires both players to toss a Jinlin back in or something. That's not a problem in the advanced game, though. In the advanced game, rather than 3 Jinlins, you start with 5, 1 of each element, and up to 2 more for a total of 7. These 2 additional Jinlins are where the dual tone and clear Jinlins come into play. A dual tone Jinlin can be played as either of its 2 elements, and a clear Jinlin is like a wild card and can be played as any element. I know that sounds strong, but these Jinlins are immediately balanced by the fact that your opponent can take advantage of them as well. As a result, a 2-tone Jinlin that more closely matches the contents of your deck might actually be a better choice than a rainbow Jinlin. And finally, your Jinlin stack can only contain 2 of any one Jinlin shape. So while this means you cannot build a stack of all Jinlins and elements that match your deck, you can still lean it in your favor. I guess the concept of balance is fitting for a game that's based on Taoism. There are also 2 new card types, action cards and power-up cards. These get shuffled along with your monster cards into a 16-card deck, from which 5 cards are drawn at the start of the game. Action cards are one-time use cards that are played during certain parts of your turn. They do everything from powering up an attack, to letting you shoot again, to even granting effects based on what Jinlins you catch. A lot of the cards I've gotten either reward high catching skill or make up for a lack of catching skill, which is a good way to start. There are also 2 more things you can do with the Jinlins you catch on your turn. You can now ditch a Jinlin to draw a card, the only way to draw a card outside of a card effect, or you can ditch the appropriate Jinlin to play a power-up card. A power-up card is a permanent boost that can only be played on a tapped monster by ditching a Jinlin of the appropriate element. These power-up cards untap your monster, which is normally pretty hard to do actually, boost its stats, and possibly give it a new special ability. Some power-ups can only be played on certain monster types, but these types are conveniently printed on the bottom of the monster cards. I like these power-up cards. It adds whiffing and attack to the list of viable plays. You can have up to 3 monsters in play at a time, and yes, you can retire a monster to play a new one from your hand each time you draw a card. Rather than being turned over, defeated monsters are added to a damage zone, and if there are ever 4 cards in your damage zone, you lose. And before you say you can just put 3 monsters in your deck to make it so that that can never happen, if you get attacked when you don't have any monsters in play, the top card of your deck gets thrown into your damage zone, so yeah, that doesn't work. If I had to sum up the Battleclaw card game, I'd say it succeeds at what Monsuno was trying to do. I think its combination of skill and strategy in the vein of similar games is fun, and while there isn't anything like deck control, you draw a third of your deck to start with, and there are enough other things going on to give the game a surprising amount of depth. And it's fun! Seeing how many chips you can grab to cash in every turn with a short skill-based game adds to the thrill, and the consideration that goes into every move you make is incredibly stimulating. It is remarkably solid, and aside from maybe some simple clarifications and the occasional typo, is a solid product as well. It's certainly a lot better than Hasbro's Yokai Watch trading card game. We live in a world where Mattel made a better trading card game than Hasbro. I am both thrilled and terrified. I'm thrillified. And to top it off, there is the particularly excellent offering of products, perfectly suited to any level of fun, whether you just want to collect the figures, or have fun seeing how many Jinlins you can grab at one go, play the basic game, or even get into the advanced game. Starting with the Claw packs, there are $10 starter packs, which include everything one player needs to play the basic game. There's a 2-player version as well, and there's the tournament packs, which for $15 have everything needed for the advanced game, including 1 clear Jinlin. But the real nuance comes in the booster packs. There's the single packs, which contain 1 Jinlin and one of those airline cream cheese things for $2, the Beast Builder packs, which contains 2 Jinlins and 1 card for $3, and the booster pack, which comes with a pack of 8 cards, 1 random Jinlin, and a spare +10 token for $4. If you ask me, once you get your Claw of choice, the best way to go is the Beast Builder packs. Not only are they the cheapest, with each Jinlin costing only $1.50, but despite what it says, the packs are actually not random, as it contains 2 Jinlins as well as the monster card that they fuse into. A fantastic choice for any level of collector. As far as I can tell, there's about 8 different kinds, so I'd say get all of those before you start messing with the random boosters. The card-heavy booster packs as well fall into the $4 per pack rule that other games abide by, and come with some extra swag to boot. I am completely astounded that Mattel didn't show Battleclaw off at Toy Fair. I think it would have been a huge hit. I really hope it gets more attention because it's probably one of the best designed collectible-based games I've seen in a long time, since Bakugan at least. The fact that the majority of the collectible components are super cost-effective gives it an advantage over the likes of Mech-Card, Bakugan, and even other collectible lines. I really think Battleclaw has a chance to perform well in the current environment, assuming the show doesn't drag it down, or assuming the show finds its proper audience. So that's a look at Battleclaw, a comically bad show tied to a surprisingly solid toy line. We'll have to see if it catches on, but either way, it is a great example of good toy design and an interesting experiment in using the world of social media to run a brand. Until next time, this is Battleclaw by Mattel, and you know what? Just one JoJo reference.
Capture, build, and fight.